In Cold Blood, to this day, feels like an avid reflection of modern America. Released on December 14, 1967, the story it tells has been long awaited, and remains a tale of modern world's twisted morals. In the early hours of November 15, 1959, 4 members of the Clutter family, Herb Clutter, his wife Bonnie, and their teenage children Nancy and Keaton, were murdered in their rural home, just outside a small farming community of Holcomb, by Perry Edward Smith and Richard Hickok. After exactly 45 days, Smith and Hickok were captured in Las Vegas, Nevada, on December 30th, 1959, following extensive manhunt which extended into Mexico. The 2 ex-convicts met in prison were found guilty of murders and sentenced to death on Tuesday, March 29, 1960. Smith and Hickok were executed in the state of Kansas on the same day, April 14, 1965. Hickok was executed first and pronounced dead 12:41 a.m. Smith followed shortly afterwards and pronounced dead at 1:19 a.m. The pair of criminals remained on death row for 5 years, 0 months, and 16 days, 1,842 days in total. In that time, acclaimed American author Truman Capote spoke with them about their crimes in his book In Cold Blood, which was published originally as a 4-part series in the New Yorker magazine in 1965, and the book it formed in 1966. March 29, 1960, the day of Smith and Hickok's death, Capote called his friend and director Richard Brooks.
The date had been set for the execution, and he was there to say goodbye to the boys because he'd become fairly close to them over the 7 years that he was writing his book. And I got word from Kansas the next day if I wanted to make it, I had to write something.
The movie and the book told the story of the long-awaited tale. America's culture shocked by the events of a random murder in America, for a long time a foreign idea to the American public.
What seemed like a senseless murder in the obscurity of western Kansas became one of the most exploited crimes in recent history. Kansas would never be the same. The heartland of America was innocent no longer.
Capote's book wrote of the events with a filmic quality, never mentioning of himself, and accounting the tale back with a neutral viewing, giving a detached point of view and blank objectivity. Capote and Brooks, collaborating on the movie, both agreed that a black and white monochrome view would be best to film the movie through. The colorless images giving the film a documentarian feel. Cinematographer Conrad Hall saying about the choice, "The use of black and white gave the film a heightened sense of truth without making things too lurid." Brooks attempting often to shoot the film with documentary-style realism. Many sequences of the film use a handheld camera with the help of Hall. Hall, an acclaimed new Hollywood filmmaker, had honed his ability to shoot like a documentarian on the 1966 film The Professionals, and the show The Outer Limits, which ran from 1963 to 1965. Shots moving away from traditional filming techniques, enlisting his trademark near pitch-black images, lens flares, and long zooms. Brooks also casting unknown actors, looking for the cast that resembled their real-life counterparts, turning down Columbia Pictures picks of Paul Newman and Steve McQueen. Instead casting Robert Blake and Scott Wilson, the title roles, who both looked so similar that Capote was struck with a, quote, memorizing reality. However, Brooks' greatest feat in attempts to have the documentary and feel was attempts to film as much of the film as possible in the locations where the events actually took place, and intentionally marketing the movie ran with.
Richard Brooks, a director of great forcefulness, was determined to capture the reality with absolute honesty. Kansas City. The film company moves here because it was from this bus terminal that the real Perry Smith made a crucial telephone call. The real Dick Hickok stopped at this gas station on the way to the fateful meeting with his partner. In this store, the killers bought the rope and tape with which they bound and gagged their victims. The relentless pursuit of authenticity leads cast and crew to the actual city streets, the sun-drenched desert highways, the rain-swept country roads, and the garish gambling towns where the real-life drama was played out. Many of these same spectators and reporters were in the sullen crowd that saw the killers brought to this courthouse after their capture. In this courtroom, they were tried for murder, and 7 of the jurors are the actual men who decided their fate. Actor John Forsythe portrays the agent who solved the crime, a remarkable look-alike for Alvin Dewey, the real-life investigator. These are the real killers. These are the actors who play their parts. So uncanny are the resemblances that they have said, sometimes we get the creepy feeling that we really are those guys. Robert Blake plays Perry Smith. Scott Wilson plays Richard Hickok. The crime depicted in Cold Blood took place inside this house. It is reenacted inside this house, so that the motion picture itself becomes a terrifyingly true story of our generation. A generation both repelled and attracted by violence.
Brooks played the Cotter family, 15,000 to film in the house where the murders took place, so it was his intent for visual resemblance. Brooks did, though, interject a level of artful extraction to the movie's main character, maybe a better term being subject. Edward Perry Smith, with his perspective explored within magical realism. Perry, an example of the question.
Two apparently heartless young criminals. What is the reality behind the appearance?
What was the reality behind the appearance? And more specifically, the story's central question was, to what extent can the murders of the Clutters be understood as part of a meaningful pattern, and to what extent are they appalling accidents of a chaotic universe where anything can happen to anybody? And by giving perspective to the criminals, it allows a new viewpoint, a new Hollywood creating art with these ideas. The characters traditionally portrayed as purely and solely evil are given some humanity throughout the film. We know that what will happen and what did happen to the Clutters, and we know it was gruesome. But an abstraction from the crime is given to us for a long time, not seeing the events or visual detail as we grow to like the characters.
Jesus, baby, I had to do the right thing by her, didn't I? Well, didn't I? Yeah.
Before they're caught, they give a boy a lift with his grandfather, help him pick empty bottles from the side of the road for money. And purity from youth is shown, with their humanity seems restored, but just as they leave, the boy they were caught and held up for their actions. Asked what criminals think of the system they're in, Richard Hitchcock putting down his kind jovialness to spite the officer.
Convicts. You're all tattooed. A tiger head. What does it do? Make you feel tough.
That cop's badge. What does it do? Make you feel honest? Everybody's got a tattoo. Only you people call them clubs. Elks, Masons, Boy Scouts, salute. High sign, low sign, secret this and secret that. No trespassing, keep off the grass. Nice, respectable tattooed clubs. Poker clubs, golf clubs, tennis clubs, clubs for gambling, clubs for drinking. Even a real club like Daddy-O's got in that little brown bag. What you gonna do, Pappy? Club it out on me?
With a tirade against American conformism and the black and white views he's looked at through. Perry, though, later questioning the sense of it. The country's intrumoral laziness with those who need help.
If they'd had a head doctor here during my first stretch, he'd have known I had a bomb ticking inside me. He'd have known I wasn't ready for parole.
You knew.
Yep.
Why didn't you tell me?
Then I wouldn't have gotten my parole.
The movie, in so many ways, has a journalistic tone to it. One character in particular, Bill Jansen, the film's invention, a stand-in for many ways Capote, played by a veteran actor Paul Stewart, a character who Capote describes as the movie's Greek chorus. Jansen commenting in the movie,
Violent, unknown force destroys a decent, ordinary family. No clue, no logic. Makes us all feel frightened, vulnerable.
the character then mostly disappearing until his narration of the two men's trials, imprisonment, and death.
It took 4 hours to pick the jury. It took the state 3 days to present its case. It took the defense 1 hour and a half. It took the jury 40 minutes to bring in the verdict.
He had to be crazy.
No, maybe stupid, but perfectly sane.
How can a perfectly sane man commit an absolute...
He's casting a meta-reference in his roles like Citizen Kane, giving the film a more Hollywood ending. The characters witnessing the end emphasizes like a vessel for Capote, and Capote's own hate for capital punishment.
It's really, that was a double execution that night, and it took about an hour and a half from the time that the thing started till it was over. And they were on the gallows, each one of them, for over 20 minutes before their heart stopped beating. I mean, it's a really an unbelievably horrendous thing to watch.
It must be.
Well, especially, you know, I mean, despite what they did or anything, I had known those two boys really intimately over a period of 5 years, and it was just excruciating to... It would have been whether I'd ever seen them or not. That's not the point.
Right.
But for somebody that you knew that well to watch them be executed in that way was very difficult.
The end, Perry is portrayed as innocent, always a prisoner to his own mind, with his father always haunting him. Perry even seeing him as the hangman. But before death, his quivering voice allows him to utter his final words.
Anything you want to say? Harry?
I think maybe I'd like to apologize. But who to?
Doesn't make sense. I mean, what happened? Or why? It had nothing to do with the Clutters. They never hurt me, they just happened to be there. I thought Mr. Clutter was a very nice gentleman. I thought so right up to the time I cut his throat.
When Jansen asks who the hangman is, he's answered,
We the people.
and with the knowledge that this should have gone other ways, he sends off Perry and Richard. In later accounts, he would say, throughout the whole ordeal, when counting, as
4 innocent, 2 guilty people murdered, 3 families broken.
a tale fundamentally that of misuse of mid-century American liberalism, and a need for a type of rationalism found in people like Capote. Surveying the future of America, Brooks sees nothing but meaningless repetition, the mass production of murder.
Newspapers have sold more papers. Politicians will make more speeches. Police and parole boards will get more blame. More laws will be passed. Everybody will pass the buck. And then, next month, next year, same thing will happen again.
Maybe this will help to stop it.
Never has.
And the United States' use of rationalism going onwards would be differing a factor in the vitality and exactness of Hall's encapsulation of American landscape that could yield both prosperity and bottomless misery. Hi, this is Luke. If you liked that video, please like and subscribe, and click the bell icon for notifications about new videos.